right, yeah, yeah. Well, Jesse, thanks so much for being here today. Really excited to dive in with you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here with you, Jason.
If you remember, what was your first Revelation Breathwork experience like?
Yeah. So it was probably, I don't know, like 2022, 2021, 22. And Caitlin Jarvis had taken the Revelation Breathwork training. And so she had had just finished the training or was in the midst of it. And so I knew her from another community that we were in online. And so she said, I'm trying to build this practice as a facilitator, and I'd like to offer this. And so I had heard a lot about breathwork as a helpful practice. And so I thought, okay, well, yeah, Caitlin's good people. And so, raise my hand. Okay, let's see how it goes. And I don't know, I'm trying to think back to like what I expected it to be. And I think I just really expected it to be more of just kind of like a relaxing breathing practice. And to some degree that was there, but I wasn't expecting how much, activating is not the right word, but like an animating, energizing experience it was. And so, I came out of that first breathwork session, like vibrating in a way that I had not experienced. And I feel energy move. I've been a Reiki practitioner for many years. But this felt much more potent in a way that I just never experienced. And it felt like kind of an initiation in some ways. And I remember I was in the basement. I went up and talked to my wife about it. And I was like, whoa, this is wild. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. And my wife was like, well, are you okay? I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally okay. But like this, I don't know. I was just kind of speechless. And I think part of it was the way that I've since made sense of it is I think I just had accumulated so many things that just live within us, and we just kind of assume they're a regular part of who we will kind of always be, and we'll just always be there. And when in using Revelation Breathwork, had more things move internally, somatically, energetically, emotionally than I think that I anticipated. I just thought, I don't know. It was really potent experience. And so, I came out of that and I was like, whoa, I want more of that. That was wild. Like that was really, it felt special. And so, so that was the first experience. I was having a hard time wrapping my mind around it. So I was like, okay, I need to do that again so I can like get a better sense of what just happened. But it was a really, really special experience for me.
And as a therapist, were you thinking, was a part of you kind of like, whoa, what is this? How could this be? Like, were you aware of that with your therapist hat on or your therapist brain?
Yeah. I mean, I was aware that like kind of somatically movement really matters, that helps us manage our nervous systems, that there's a way in which emotions like, healthy emotional life is allowing emotions to flow through us as opposed to like kind of ignoring them or kind of denying them and letting them kind of like stay stuck. There's definitely the awareness that movement is beneficial. But I did not have as much experience with breath as the tool for the movement. And so that's what I think surprised me a little bit, was how much actually moved just based off of breathing. It was a pleasant surprise.
So at what point after that, how long and what inspired you or made you then sign up to become a facilitator of this work?
So I continued doing breath work with Caitlin for a year, probably once or twice a month. And so it had become such a valuable part of my own practice and journey. I had just found that I would have access to insight in ways that I felt, how do I think about this? Felt less like it took less effort, or the effort, it was less of a cognitive effort, right? So a lot of times we get insight by like our brains crunching through, thinking through problem solving or thinking through what's challenging us. And what I really loved about Revelation Breathwork was that it was kind of like I can just surrender to a breathing rhythm that someone's guiding me through, and to some degree listen to my own body. So sometimes, you know, I can pick my own rhythm. I don't have to do what the facilitators do, offering. But largely I'm surrendering to the practice and saying, like, what is my body? What is my spirit asking of me? Instead of, okay, how am I understanding this cognitively? What makes sense logically? You know, trying to use all this reasoning to think my way out of problems. And instead it was like just focusing on breathing and continuing to breathe and allowing things to move as they move, and coming out of breathwork sessions with like epiphanies. Okay, that's what I want to do, or that's how I want to shift, or oh man, that's what I was holding on to that I didn't even realize. And so it had just become so beneficial for my functioning that it felt like, and I found myself wanting to have more people experience it. So I like asked Caitlin to facilitate for my family, and I opened it up to my family, and she facilitated a breathwork session for any of my family members that wanted to participate in it. And I just found more of that desire for other people to experience it, and felt like, you know, given my profession, it could also be a helpful tool for me to have as a person who, you know, supports people finding healing in their life. And so and so I just had found it to be so helpful and beneficial that I thought, okay, well, this would be a good thing for me to learn how to facilitate. And so that's why I signed up for the facilitator class.
And if you remember, what was your experience of the training like?
Yeah, it was delightful. I really, really enjoyed it. I think you and Maura obviously love each other very much, but also have like worked together long enough that like there was just such a good synchronicity to how the two of you facilitate that program. And it was both informative and educational, but also had a lot of opportunity for, you know, your own introspection and reflection, and then obviously practicing breath work and practicing facilitating for others. And so there were just so many opportunities to learn more about, you know, first of all, obviously breathwork and revelation breathwork, but also like yourself as a person, yourself as someone who's healing, yourself as a facilitator and someone who's helping others heal. And so, I remember emerging from that training with so much more clarity. Like I felt clearer, like more of like an open channel as a person, but also like more clarity in terms of thought and intention about where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. Just kind of trusting myself more, which I didn't. I mean, I expected to trust myself more as you know, in terms of facilitating breath work, but I didn't expect it to feel like a more fully embodied trust of self.
That's great. And so when you graduated and practiced, like how, being a therapist and there being probably more regulations for sure that a therapist has than a life coach or a breathwork facilitator has, how have you shared complemented the work that you do, if at all, with Revelation Breathwork, or is it something you do with your clients? Is it something that you have also in your personal practice? Curious about how you navigate that. Yeah,
I don't know if you remember, I had a lot of worry about the legality of things as a therapist. You know, it was pretty easy to add it to my liability insurance as a therapist. I think a lot of therapists are in the last handful of years are really acknowledging more somatic approaches to therapy and healing. And so breathwork naturally, I think, falls into that space. And so it was probably less abnormal than I was thinking it was for someone to want to add this to their practice. And so, yeah, that was pretty simple. And I was just making sure I had, my paperwork set up and right kind of consent forms that people could sign. And so once I set that up, it seemed, it was pretty easy. It was easier than I thought it would be. And so then the way that it's been integrated into my practice. So I do offer one-off breathwork sessions if people are interested in that. That's not generally as much how I've offered breathwork. Usually it's for clients. It's my therapy clients. And often what will happen is we come upon a moment or season in their life where it's clear that there's either a lot of emotional, kind of baggage, blockage, experience that needs some movement in a way that thinking about it is not getting us there. Or sometimes it's just so overwhelming and intense that it just is like, let's not even try and think about it. Like, let's just go straight into like that processing through breathing and feeling and movement, so that we don't even, that just it in many ways feels more straightforward, and trusting that the insight will still come through the use of the body and the breath versus, thinking that the brain's going to get us there. And so that is one of the primary things. Sometimes there's an acute thing that happens where it makes a lot of sense to use breath work. Other times, if it feels like there's a bit of, I want to say, so like wandering in therapy is quite natural, and that's okay. There's a way in which I work primarily with adults with ADHD, and so like that divergent path wandering is quite natural, and usually there's like a common thread through those through that, and I consider it partly my responsibility as a therapist to help people find that kind of common thread through the wandering and the divergence. However, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes it feels like breathwork is just a beautiful opportunity to like stop the wandering and kind of get to the core of something. And so I've done Revelation Breathwork sessions with clients, and sometimes we'll just do a one-off, like we just do a breathwork session instead of their therapy session, and then the next week we'll talk about it. I've also had sessions where we did a Revelation Breathwork session, and then we sat with what emerged in that session and then worked on processing that, having additional time for those kind of sessions. It is I work with clients often, for varying lengths of time, but I've had certain experiences where we've worked together for years, and I'm used to clients having a more kind of cerebral approach to this, and then we shift into doing a Revelation Breathwork session, and their body just presents a different way. There's this settling that has happened, and a stillness and a clarity that we often take a while to get to, again, cognitively, but through a Revelation Breathwork session, we come out to the other side, and it feels more grounded. It feels more clear is the word that keeps coming to my mind, but almost like sacred, almost like holy. Like we just end up in this space where it's just insight after insight that emerges without a lot of the segues to get to those insights. And so those are when those sessions happen, it feels really special to kind of experience them. They feel different. And then I also facilitate I facilitate breathwork in someone else's like online community as like a guest facilitator. Yeah, and then my personal practice, continuing to engage with Revelation Breathwork, as a great way to feel inspired, to invite insight, and just feel more kind of clean and healthy and functional as a person.
Wow, thank you. Love everything that you've shared, and I'm curious if there's something maybe you haven't mentioned around your primary clientele of adults with ADHD and neurodivergence, and maybe speak to a little bit about what you've shared about the breath work and getting out of the cerebral into the body. I would say that sounds general for everybody, and is there something unique maybe to that community of people that you've experienced or seen? Maybe there's listeners that feel like they fall, that they're a part of that community that you could speak to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, most of my clients are adults with ADHD and or autism, and a lot of that population has difficulty with interoceptive feedback. So they have difficulty accessing physical sensations in their body, that naturally they miss hunger cues, felt sense of fatigue or sleepiness. It's very common for them to like totally be so engrossed in something and kind of have a disconnected moment with their body that they don't notice that they needed to eat, and it's like it's dinner time now, and they never even considered lunch, or sometimes waiting so long they're like, oh gosh, I got to go to the bathroom. Like there's a disconnection from feeling bodily experiences, and so and many of them are really cerebral. So there's a way in which Revelation Breathwork feels very different as a practice, but then also kind of shifts us into a different gear where we access things differently, and it's beautiful to see. It really is. I think it's a real gift.
That's awesome. So I'm assuming, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you facilitated both, for sure online because the training's online, but also in person, and what your experience is of each of those types of facilitation.
Yeah, primarily I have facilitated online, mostly because so I'm licensed here in Michigan, but I'm also licensed in California and Colorado and Wisconsin. So I have a mix of clients all over, and not all of them are necessarily really local to Ann Arbor, where I am located in Michigan. So most of my facilitation has been online. In person, in person is fun and feels different. It's nice to be present, in the room with the practice and the energy that's flowing. I did a session for my brother that was really fascinating in person, and seeing his energy move in a way that I have not really perceived, people's energy moving, but like again, I wasn't ready to have the experience. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? But I could see energy kind of like rolling up his body in a way that I had never observed. And it was like, you could see on his skin. It was wild. Anyway, so that, so being present with that and being in the space of that was really, really special. I feel really grateful for that experience and sharing it with him. Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things we share in the training, which you've probably heard and can appreciate why from your experience, is I think facilitating for family members is more advanced facilitation, because so often we
are like, oh my gosh, I've received so much benefit from this practice. Now I want to give it to my mother or my father and help them heal their thing. Or like, we want to use it to like change them instead of just allowing that. And so we're invested in their experience. Like, I love this. Oh, my dad, he hated this. Like, whoa. And so we can bring expectations. We can bring agendas that we don't even realize. And so that's why I think, personally, that facilitating for family members is a little more advanced once we can understand that it's never about us and have that more detached experience. So I appreciate that you were able to facilitate from your brother. And I'm sure as a therapist, you have a more advanced ability to kind of let go a little bit more. Being an experienced facilitator now for many years, what would you say if you were teaching someone how to facilitate Revelation Breathwork? Like, what would you say is the most important part of facilitating a Revelation Breathwork session?
I think it really comes down to trusting the breath to do what it needs to do. Both from the standpoint of, as a facilitator, wanting to get it right and making sure that I'm guiding them and am I saying the right things to make sure that they're getting there, and wanting them to have like you were saying earlier with family members, like wanting them to have a magical experience, wanting them to really get what they want or what I think they might need out of the experience. And but when there's so much effort and energy placed into that, we pull ourselves out of that presence. We pull ourselves out of just like being attuned to them and attuned to the natural magic of someone just being present with their breath, present with their body, present with their own emotions and spirit. And there's so much of life that we're not doing. We're not doing that. Like, so much of our, I don't know, like 90% of the day is like, do this, now go do that, now go, respond to this, now tell this person that, now come back here and hear this thing, now remember it for later. And I mean, just there's so much that is preoccupation with getting through life without the slowing down and attunement to being present in life. And it's such a gift. Like, it would be a gift just to sit with them in silence and not have the music and not have the breathing, right? And we kind of forget that. But on top of that, then you're guiding them through this like sacred opportunity to connect with what is true within them, and what is true outside of them. And it's an opportunity to trust in their own wisdom and their body's own wisdom, and then also your heart and love for the people that you facilitate. It helps us, just be present with what is, which is the work of our lives in a way that it shouldn't be. But this is the world that we live in, the world we've created, and so it's the one we navigate currently. And so it takes intentionality and work to be present with what is. And so I think Revelation Breathwork, when you facilitate, it's a real gift to stay in that presence of what is, and hold that for someone as well.
So do you feel like when you were facilitating, that you received that's a positive experience for you as well, versus it's just about the client or the person in front of you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There have been days where I'm still thinking about the session I facilitated, and and I'm doing therapy sessions with people. Like, there's a lot of emotional significance that happens into my day-to-day life. And not every session is always, full of epiphanies. Sometimes it's just, again, like a gentleness, attending, a being with what is. But there are breathwork sessions where I am thinking about it. Like, I feel energized by what occurred. And I might not even know, they might not even have verbalized what it was about the session. They might not even share their insights and epiphanies with me on the other end of the session. But I felt the energy of it. I gained my own experiences and insights from the facilitation that I walk away thinking about, like, oh man, that was so good. I am just so pleased. Like, it just feels so wholesome in a way that we have such a shortage of that in life. And so, yeah, it feels like nourishing in a way that is surprising for some, when you're facilitating for someone else, that you get nourished from the experience.
100%. That's why I facilitate so much. And as a therapist and Revelation Breathwork facilitator, the kind of post-experience integration, how do you do it? The post-experience integration for Revelation Breathwork, because there can be big emotions, big insights, more questions that come up kind of when we make the space. How do you support a client in integrating after a significant session?
A lot of it is witnessing. It is way more witnessing than, like, the facilitation was done during the breathwork session primarily, and so afterward, I'm here to listen to what emerges, and to not. I generally don't need to coach a whole lot. I don't need to, like, ask leading or drawing out questions to get them to share more of what the experience was. It is really mostly like quieting myself and observing and bearing witness to what has occurred within them, and they share that. And if something piques my curiosity, then I'm like, oh, can you share more about that? Like, that was interesting, or or maybe maybe I'm not understanding. Can you tell me more? Yeah. And
for client integration, like, do you say, hey, drink a lot of water, or like, hey, journal some of these things, or go for a walk? Like, are there any practices that you suggest to support your clients in integrating a big experience?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So I will talk about moving their body in gentle ways afterward, maybe going for a walk, touching the ground, or a tree, drinking lots of water, eating foods that are nourishing for them. And then I say at the end of every session, like, if you have an insight that you want to carry forward in life, like jotting it down, journaling it, or talking with someone else about the experience. If it's not me, talking with someone else about the experience to help it kind of more fully situate within yourself. I have found that I've done a lot of sessions now, and just jotting, even though I don't reference my journal a whole lot, I remember the ones where I did actually make a note in some way. And those really, it makes a difference to kind of just, like, give yourself that 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes of writing those sentences out as a way to honor what emerged.
Now, you mentioned music earlier. How do you relate to what kind of music do you like? Is there one specific song that you're like, oh, and I think about, if I'm facilitating for someone, this is like a go-to song that never fails? Like, share your relationship with music and how you facilitate.
Well, there's a way in which I've always loved music. I've always really felt like music, being present with music, is an experience for me. And it's been interesting since I've been a facilitator. I have intentionally opened up to more different kinds of music, so that I'm just have more in kind of my playlists, like, just, so many more songs, different varieties of music, remakes of songs or re-releases of songs that, having them in so many different versions. And so I'm pretty consistently discovering and learning new artists and new music, that I don't know that I would know about them without facilitating breathwork and participating in breathwork in the ways that I have. So that's been a lot of fun. That's been like a kind of added bonus of the adventure of this. There's so many. it's not necessarily one that I always or like a frequent flyer necessarily, but Angie McMahon MC, I think MAHON. She has a song, and it has 2 titles to it because someone remixed it. But there's a part that it's like light, dark, light again, light, dark, light again, breath. No, is it death, life, death again? And it's like talking about the cycles of things. I'm sure that I butchered that. I'm sorry, Angie. But it is really good. And there's a lot of songs on her album that are so good. There's one, shoot, I forget the title, but it ends in make mistakes, and her just singing make mistakes, make mistakes, make mistakes, make mistakes, make mistakes. Like she starts shouting it, and it's just like it's so raw and real, and it just is like permissive in a way that so many of us need permission to have and to be. And so yeah, it's that both of those songs are just like so rich. Yeah, but it's been interesting to hear music differently as a breathwork facilitator, because I'm like, oh yeah, and there are songs that I love that I'm like, I don't think that really fits into breathwork. Like, just we change tempo too many times. It just like it doesn't. That's for an highly advanced playlist for someone really just going to trust themselves. If I'm going to try and work it in somewhere, but there are so many songs that yeah, it's been fun to experience listening to music differently, because it both is like rich for me, but then I'm thinking about sharing the richness of this song with someone else. And so it makes music, it almost is like, I'm going back to mixtapes, right? Cassettes where like, oh yeah, I'm putting this all together, in a way that, I hadn't done in years. So it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And when other people, I've, experienced other people's breath work, I've definitely saved playlists that you've made where I'm like, oh, that was a great one. I love that. That's such a good idea. And so just kind of that like gathering and collecting of so many wonderful songs. And it has expanded my appreciation for just how much amazing music is out there, in a way that yeah, just like the variety and versatility of different songs. It's fun. It's made music even more fun.
Love that. I don't think I've heard of Angie McMahon yet. So, I mean, I definitely have to check her out and those songs, and just the way that you share about them. It is like the right lyric at the right time can crack somebody open, give them permission to make mistakes or scream or cry or believe in themselves. Like, to me, the power of the music is such a big part of the experience, because it evokes emotion, it evokes memory. You have all these different things. So, and the discovery of it, and like you said, I'm a kid of the mid '90s. Mixtapes and like crafting a journey and different songs and different genres and how they work together. It's a whole thing. We could talk about that. So thanks for sharing that. Another thing I'm curious to hear your perspective on is you've participated as a breather in many of the, let's say, men's breath work that I've facilitated. And I'm curious what your experience is like that, because as I mentioned at the very beginning, this is not the right phrase I'm going to say it anyway. Who cares? Getting men to do this work is not always easy, and I'm not trying to get anyone to do it, but men entering these spaces is not as common as maybe other things that men do together. And so I'm curious what your experience is in being in a Zoom room, but in a group of men that are participating in this way. Is it any different than if you're just in a group of mixed genders and people, or like, what has your experience been breathing with men?
Well, the first thought that comes to mind is that I think globally, for anyone, our world as it is doesn't really encourage us to connect with our inner experience, like our inner world, right? And so, but I think there's an extra layer of discouragement for men to do that. And so to be in the presence of other men doing this work, it is, I don't want to say shortcut because it cheapens it, but there's something about accessing more quickly what is true internally, what is vulnerable and deep, that it happens more swiftly than I don't know, than being in other spaces with men. Or you might, I mean, it feels like you might never get there, or the only way you'll get there is like in the pain of divorce or grief, you know, end of life grief. Like, there's just unfortunately such a disconnect in a lot of like kind of masculine spaces from that internal world, that internal experience, introspection and reflection. And I think thankfully that is starting to change more. I notice in clients that I work with, you know, 5 years younger than me, 10 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me, like how much more kind of attunement to their own personal experience, but then the experience of others is happening. And so that's really encouraging. But largely, you know, I think that's been kind of vacant. So to be in that breathwork space with other men, it feels like, I have the word gift, like a treat. It's like, but that's like that. It feels too simple and small because we're talking about getting to the things that are profound, getting to the things that change our life, getting to the things that help us know who we are and who we want to grow into being. And so that's not small. That's not cheap. It is quite special, but the fact that we don't have to wait, we don't have, like, in that space, you're not waiting 15 years of knowing someone for them to finally get to the point where they're like, you know, I don't know. Now they've had something difficult and they're going to talk about it for the first time. And you're like, oh, wow, I've known you for a long time. And now here we are finally. Okay.
Yeah, one of the words that comes up as you were describing was like there's like an honesty to the process, like a simple, clear honesty in this space when men are willing to show up in this way, in their masculinity, in their power, in their strength, but also in their realness and their honesty of their fears and their vulnerabilities and their insecurities and all the things that everybody has, but they're able to, in that space, just be honest about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree. There is like an honesty and candor and like yeah, like I mean, it can be vulnerability, but it's not always vulnerability as in like a weakness. It's more vulnerability as in, yeah, honesty and truth, right? Sincerity maybe is even more of where I'm thinking. Yeah.
How do you define healing, being in the, what I would say, healing arts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the therapy spaces, often healing is like removal of symptoms, which is I think unfortunately is really short-sighted because it's just like such a pathologizing paradigm where, you know, it's about, disease and disorder and often that's just someone functioning in a different way. And we kind of marginalize them as a result. So I think early on, I think I probably would have understood it more in those terms. But as I continue to learn and grow and evolve as a person, I think healing becomes more of reconnecting with what is true for oneself, and allowing oneself to expand their capacities, like and go beyond. Like it is one thing to know yourself really well, but it's another to then bring more of that self out into the world. And so it is both like that inner cultivation and learning and growth, but it is also that expansion of connecting more with others and with community and increasing kind of the impact you have in the world, whatever that looks like specifically for you and the world you're in, based off the gifts that you have and what you found in being the person that you are. And so, that's become more of how I've seen healing.
Love that. Tell us what you're up to now in your work, in your world.
Yeah. So
me a little bit about the group that you're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm a licensed therapist and licensed in the states of California, Colorado, Michigan, and Wisconsin to provide psychotherapy for adults with ADHD and autism. I also provide assessments for people who in the states of California, Colorado, and Michigan for people who want to get assessed for ADHD or autism. And so that's been a lot of my kind of clinical work. More recently, I have been practicing in a therapy modality called Healing from the Body Level Up, which more fully acknowledges our kind of somatic and energetic bodies. I have been engaging with that for my own therapy journey, and then also training in that modality. And I have I don't think I said this earlier. I have ADHD. I've had ADHD all my life, and I have significantly reduced how ADHD interferes with my life through using Healing from the Body Level Up. So I have started offering a group called Alleviate ADHD that guides people, as essentially like a course that guides them through the process of addressing, kind of somatically, energetically, some of the kind of interference patterns that make it harder to live with ADHD in the world. And there's part of this is kind of a little bit of a paradigm shift in how we think about ADHD. So I want to be clear. I'm thinking about ADHD as like neurobiological difference. So just brains function differently. ADHDers often are more perceptive. They are divergent in their thinking. They have a different relationship with time. There's also this concept called the univocity of attention, where it's the idea that ADHDers kind of receive all information kind of with the same weight. Everything's equally weighted, so it becomes more to kind of filter through, and that's sometimes where you get like the real distractibility. But layered on top of that is kind of like the cultural stigmas and biases that treat ADHDers differently. Then there's traumas that they experience, and then there's also just the world we live in with more kind of faster pace, more requests, more pings, more notifications, all that stuff that kind of all layers on top of the ADHD experience. And so this group is to help alleviate some of those layers so that you can get back down to that core of your ADHD brain being divergent and having a different relationship with time, but still having the capacity and like awareness and agency within yourself that you are navigating that with profoundly more ease than a lot of the kind of behavioral strategies that I've tried to manage my ADHD with, and I've encouraged other people to do historically. And so now I'm finding a different way, and it's been really wonderful and effective. So Alleviate ADHD is that program, and I'm excited to get it really going here.
Well, tell us how people can find you, follow you, get into your world.
Yeah, absolutely. So my therapy practice is called Atelier Therapy. So Atelier is the French word for workshop. I thought I was being so clever.
You gotta spell that for us.
Yeah, I was going to say I was being so clever and fun and like creative by making it Atelier Therapy and putting a French word in the name. And now when it comes to like letting people know about it, I'm like, okay, so it's spelled Atelier is the word Atelier, and then therapy. And so ateliertherapy.com is my website for therapy. I'm also on TikTok at Atelier Therapy. And Instagram. I was later to get to Instagram with my business, so I'm Atelier_therapy on Instagram. So happy to connect with folks there if they're interested, and or if they hear this and they want to shoot me an email and have more questions about anything, Revelation Breathwork, facilitating breathwork, therapy stuff, Alleviate ADHD, whatever. I'm happy to help people find what they need.
Love it. Well, this was a treat and a gift to spend this much time with you, Jesse. Thank you so much for making the time and sharing your heart and your skill, your expertise, your experience with us. And yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a delight and pleasure, Jason. I appreciate it. I appreciate you and you doing this work. It's so good. It's so good. Thank you.